Going to be treating this piece of dinosaur bone. I treated the one side initially before I cut. I didn't dip the whole thing in Hextall, but just enough to be able to get a solid cut. And this side we're now going to clean up before we treat again. Now we're throwing it in an ultrasonic cleaner. I heat it, use 99% isopropyl alcohol. That's what the company that produces Hxtal recommends. You want these surfaces nice and clean, free from oil, dirt, dust, everything, because that will get trapped in this, and we don't want that. Ultrasonic heated is an added step. You can do it without doing this, but obviously this will help it get a lot cleaner and quicker. Now we're going to let it dry, and we're putting it on the hot plate. We're going to heat this up to about 120 degrees. On this, it's the low setting. We're going to let that heat up, let all the alcohol evaporate out of it, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, time to mix the Hxtal. This is 3 parts A to 1 part B, just what they recommend. I use a scale that's accurate to 1/10 of a gram. Give it a good mix, spend a couple minutes. Air bubbles aren't a big deal. You want it to go clear. It'll be kind of cloudy at first. Not really cloudy, but almost like an oily water type look. I used 2 cups, just showed that second cup real quick. So after I spend some time mixing it in this cup and get it to go clear, even though it'll have air bubbles, then I'll transfer it to the second cup. I use a wood bamboo skewer. Don't use metal, don't want to contaminate this stuff. So make sure the skewer doesn't have anything that's going to come off of it, or whatever you mix it with, make sure that it's not going to leave particles in the Hxtal. Most of the time this isn't going to be a big deal, especially if you're sanding it off afterwards. Alright, let it sit a little bit. Still have some air bubbles, but this isn't a big deal. This is in the second cup now. Poured it all out of this first cup. Mixed again once it was in the second cup. Again, you want to blend this stuff thoroughly. Got plenty of time to work with it. There are air bubbles still in it, but it's not a big deal because I'm just treating the surface and the fractures. The heat from this will eliminate those bubbles anyway, but gonna pay attention to where I'm doing this, get it in those fracture lines, and capillary action when it cools will help it go further in. Alright, now that this is coated, we're going to throw it in a pressure cooker. This is a very economical way to get started treating. Of course, I use Hxtal, but you can use other 2-part epoxy resins. I just recommend they have a long setting time so that they can sink in when you use this device. Replaced the regular pressure release valve on this pressure cooker with the tire valve stem. Now we can pump it up with the bike tire. You don't need an air compressor. Also, tap and drilled up to a brake bleeder. This allows me to see where my pressure is at. There is also a pressure release valve on this that kicks on at 20 psi. This won't hold pressure for very long, but it'll hold for the 2 hours we need it to. It'll hold plenty of pressure in that time. I bring it up to 20 psi. It'll lose some of that pressure slowly, but that's fine. Showing this early so you can see what happens. So I pulled it out of the pressure chamber and you can see those bubbles. Those are the areas that it really pushed down in. So I'm going to put it back in and let it sit longer. Now for the last part, just sitting and waiting. Keep it about 70 to 80 degrees. 3 days it becomes, you can touch it without it being tacky. 7 days you can work it. 14 days if you want to minimize the undercutting and get a higher polish on it. It takes about 14 for it to become good and hard, almost to its maximum cure. You can cure it a little hotter to try to get things to speed up, but I don't recommend going above 90. I know some people push it, but I don't. This is just how I do it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching.